The just completed state legislative session included the passing of a number of new laws affecting businesses and consumers. And joining us now to talk about these new laws is Alexis Glasscock. She's a partner and head of government relations at Fenimore Law. Good to see you again.
Thanks
for joining us.
Ted. Thank you for having me.
Did we have more of these kinds of bills coming into law this year? What do you think?
More. We've had, actually, what's really interesting, there were about 274 that were signed into law. There were actually about 1,700 that were introduced, including memorials and resolutions. That's the largest number that we've seen down at the Capitol.
Yeah, but as far as business interests and these kinds of things, more or less, they're about the same?
About the same.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit less on the business and more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about deep fake bills, because I know one almost made it, but the other did, and this regards disclosures required during election. What's this all about?
So this is really interesting, Ted, as we head into this election, and I'm sure you know this, that Arizona is going to have about $821 million of advertising money come in because we're the top state that people are looking at. But what this bill does is it requires 90 days before an election, anybody who has used AI, has created false advertising through, I say false, it has to be with the intent to defraud or harass, and they have used either voice recordings or images or videos depicting a candidate in a likeness that is meets those qualifications. They will be fined penalties unless they take it down before 90 days before. And the election, as you know, is in November. So really by September 14th, those ads have to be down.
But those ads don't have to be down before September 14th.
That's correct. That's correct. The law becomes effective September 14th.
Okay, was there much of a fight on this?
Really, there wasn't, because I think a lot of people are concerned. They don't want to. Nobody wants to have that false advertising about them, where it's their likeness, their image, and people think it's them making some statement, and it's not.
The last question on this one: how do you prove it's a deep fake?
Because, well, the one exemption is if you put on there, if there's a statement that a reasonable person would think it was clear and concise that it is not the actual person making the statements, then you're exempt from the fines and the penalties.
Interesting. All right, it's kind of like actors portraying real people, that kind of thing?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
All right, automated online ticket events. We had the Taylor Swift whole rigmarole here. Is that what this is about?
Yes, Ted, it really is. It's not just that, but sporting events or other events that people want to go to, and they go online to try and buy their tickets, and you can only buy 3 or 4, maybe 8, and they can't buy any because they're all sold out. This law, and the Arizona legislature worked hard. They had consultants help them to make sure they captured every way that a bot, an automated computer system, could go in and appear to be a person and buy, hundreds and hundreds of tickets and then resell them on another online platform at a higher price.
It seems to really go after bots. How are bots defined in this legislation?
So bots are defined in a lot of, there's several definitions in there, but basically it's a computer that tries to present several IP addresses or several different emails, hundreds of different emails, when in effect it's just one computer program doing it.
Okay, so that's out for now.
Well, it's out, yes.
And again, as far as enforcement, how do you enforce something like this?
It's going to be enforced because there's a penalty of $10,000 per ticket, and we know the AG is going to be aggressive in going after anybody who does this. So we anticipate that it will seriously decrease the incentive for people to do that.
Okay. Also passing, here's a familiar one, the tamale bill. It finally passed into law. What changed from last year when it was vetoed to this year when it was signed?
Well, that is the really interesting question, because not a lot changed. But what is relevant that did change is that now you can have cooked poultry or meat inside of those cottage food products. Previously, you could not. But for the most part, the bill is very similar to last year's bill. In terms of the requirements, there's not anything really new in terms of food handler requirements or things like that.
And these are folks that are selling their stuff that they cooked at the cottage, basically home cooked, correct?
Right. So the favorite tamale, the lady in the neighborhood who makes these great tamales and everybody wants to go buy them, now she can add chicken and meat. But what's really important in this bill is to recognize that there's more responsibility for the consumer to look and check and make sure that they know who's cooking the food, because there's foodborne illnesses can occur if meat products aren't cooked for a long enough time or at a high enough temperature. So as long as, everybody's gone to the same lady in the neighborhood or gentleman who makes burritos forever and they're safe, then that's fine. but there is not the same requirements as a restaurant that would sell food.
I was going to ask last question on this. How much food inspection is required?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Basically, in order to sell under the food cottage exemption, you have to be registered with the Department of Health Services. You register online, you get a number. Then each county is different. Some counties require an in-person food handlers course. Others do it online, and yet there are some that don't have a requirement.
Interesting.
So it puts the burden on the consumer, but it lets us have these really wonderful
Right.
foods with more ingredients.
If you know your neighbor, you're okay. But if you
Exactly.
don't, then you better check things out.
Yep.
Election signature verification. It sounds like more time now for county recorders is to verify signatures. Is that what I'm seeing here?
That's exactly right, Ted. So the federal government changed a law, and that required Arizona, in order to comply with it, to move the primary up. So instead of August 6th, it's now July 30th. So the early ballots will be mailed out on July 3rd. And the thing that it's going to do for the county recorders is give them more time to, if there's a close election, to count those votes. And also they'll have more time after the primary is over to mail out the general ballots to people who are overseas and entering the military.
Okay, impact on things like tabulation, hand counts, curing ballots, those sorts of things?
Yes. So in terms of curing, a couple of things. So in terms of curing the ballot, you'll now, instead of 3 days, if somebody didn't sign their name properly or they forgot to sign it, they can now take an additional 2 days. So they have 5 days. So, and if the county record, and the county record will be open, if it's, say, a Saturday, it's calendar days,
Yeah.
they'll be open so you can go on Saturday or Sunday to fix that, to cure that ballot. The other thing that's interesting is that in order to expedite the processing and counting, you'll be able to go in if you have an early ballot. A lot of the ballots were delivered the
Yes.
day of or the day before. You can go in with your driver's license or whatever identification you have on voter registration, show it to them, and then they'll verify that's your signature at the polling place, so that instead of going into the pile with all that have to be counted, it now goes into the other pile of verified, done, ready to go.
Yeah, all right. Hey, before you go, the Casita bill, accessory dwelling units, it's kind of late in the session here, was a big deal. If I remember correctly, it was like only municipalities of 75,000 or more. What was that all about? What is this new law all about?
So, and it's called the Casita bill and the Casita law. And what it does is, if you, for people who want to have, affordable housing is a big issue. About 270,000 housing units are needed right now today. So the idea is in areas that are close to the central business district, if they're within a mile of those, people can, without the municipalities interfering, they have to comply with this, and they have a year to enact their ordinances to comply. But starting on September 14th, if you want to go ahead and begin building an accessory dwelling unit in your backyard, you can do that if you're within that area. You can also take, say, a garage or an Arizona room,
Yeah.
and you can make that into another unit.
If you make these into these, last question, if you make these into these accessory units, do they have to be rented for a certain period of time? Short-term rentals, wasn't that a problem with this stuff?
Exactly, and that was kind of a fight with this bill, with this law. So basically, in order to deal with that, it requires the owner of the property to live there. They have to be there. But that said, you could have several short-term rentals going on or long-term. The idea is to have long-term rentals, but they can be month to month. So,
Yeah, that was a battle.
That
was
was a
fight.
battle.
Yeah. Alexis Glasscock, again, Fenimore Law. Good information.